Hi, today I'm going to take you through the daily process that you should be using when you're using Application Insights to monitor the health and performance of your production website. It's important that each day, at the beginning of the workday, you log in and just check that there hasn't been anything unexpected that's occurred in the last 24 hours. So I'm going to demonstrate how we do this. I'm going to be demonstrating this using one of our websites called Sugar Learning, where we have Application Insights set up. So once I've logged into Azure, I can see the Sugar Learning entry inside Application Insights. I can click it, and up comes all the performance metrics by default for the last 24 hours. Now you can click time range and have a look at a different time range if you're looking at trends over a longer period, such as 7 or 30 days. But let's just leave it for the default 24 hours for the moment, just to see how our application's been running in the last 24 hours. So the first thing I look at is the first couple of graphs. So we can just check the average server response time. It seems to be nice and fast. Looks like we've had a little spike here, but it doesn't seem to be anything out of the ordinary here. The average time. So I just make sure that everything here looks good and healthy. And we can see how many failed requests that we've got. We can see we've got 0 for the last 24 hours, so that's great, but we'll come back to this in a moment. As I said, I do a few things. The first thing, I just check the general graphs, make sure that they're all looking about normal and flat. I'll then go down and check the availability to make sure that there haven't been any availability downtimes that I wasn't aware of. But we can see in the last 24 hours, things have been nice and smooth and everything's looking normal. If I want, I can click to drill into one of these, and I can see the web test average response time. So then we can quite clearly see we've got two bands. We've got the results for the USA web test, which will take about 1.2 seconds, which seems normal. And because our web server, our Azure instance, is hosted in the USA, I've also got web tests set up for Australia. And we can see that it's a bit slower because of the latency going across the ocean, but everything is staying within the same normal expected band that we would expect for this application. So the availability and response times are looking average. There haven't been any regressions in performance. So once I'm happy with that, I usually move on to failed requests. Now, as I mentioned, here we've been good. There haven't been any failed requests in the last 24 hours. So let's dive into the failures. And we can see there's nothing. We can see that there's been many server requests, but thankfully no exceptions. But that doesn't make for a good video, so we're going to click time range and we're going to look at the last 7 days. Click update. There we go. So we've had 196 exceptions happen in the last 7 days, but you can see that it looks like they would have been fixed up about here, and we haven't had any more coming through. Now, let's pretend that it was the last 24 hours and exceptions have come through. How would we go about investigating this? There are two main ways. There's total failed requests by operation name, so this is on the server side, so we can see each of these MVC controllers had some errors and exceptions happening. We can scroll down, or instead of doing it by which operation name, so the method name where the exception occurred in, scroll down, we can group them by the exception type. So we can group them up and we can see the bulk of the exceptions were null reference exceptions. We had some exceptions with our domain objects. And here, because Application Insights brings through server-side and client-side exceptions, we can see that in the client side it looks like that some pages are missing the jQuery definition. So we can go into drill into those. Now it's very much up to you which way you want to go into it. If you can see that one method has a whole bunch of exceptions, it might be easier to drill into that one. If you can see that one specific exception type, like this, you might want to drill into that one instead. It's very much up to you. But it's important to try and fix up one exception type each day. Don't try to, you can try to do all of them as they crop up and do nothing else, but what we try to do is just do slow fixes over time. So today we'd focus on one exception type, fix it. Tomorrow we'd look at what the next top exception is, fix that one, and each day we'd come back here and just have a look at it. So let's go and drill into this MVC controller. We can click and we can see all of the requests that were done on this when the exceptions happened. So let's just pick this one, and this is giving us some more background on what happened with this exception. If we have a look, we can see all the details for the request. So if we scroll down, we can see that someone tried to hit it with Firefox. In this case, it looks like it was a web crawler. Baidu is Chinese version of Google. So a web crawler tried to hit here. You can see the URL that they tried to hit, the full URL, which is very useful for debugging. You can see what parameters were passed in, etc. But importantly, we can see the actual exception that happened here. So we've got a null reference exception. And same thing here, we can click the three dots and we can see the full exception details. So the person was trying to access it from Beijing because it was the web crawler, the reference type, etc. But what typically is the most useful is here, the call stack. If we hit the ... we'll get the entire call stack. So we can see it was a null reference exception inside of our controller, something to do with our lambda. So I'm guessing our lambda expression, we're trying to filter on something which is null, would be my guess here. And it's happening inside of my controller. So I should be able to now go into the get company method and just try to debug it from there. Now, once I've found that we've got this issue, I would go into our bug tracker, in this case TFS. I'd create a new bug entry into TFS to track this. Once I've done the fix, I'll check it in, attach it, associate it to that bug, and then I'll close it off. And what I like to do is just open up that exception. Once you've deployed to production, I'd like to open it up and just confirm that it hasn't happened anymore. So for example here, I had a performance issue. You can see when I deployed it, it was fixed up. Now the same thing can happen with exceptions. So you can see that exceptions just suddenly stop. I hope you found that useful. This is one way that you can go through each day and just confirm that your application is running healthily.